Richardson, your moderator, your host of Guess Who's Coming to Kansas City. But for the benefit of our listeners, Mr. Scott Owens will tell you how they can get on the show as far as listening to it. Mr. Owens?
Yes, sir. You can reach Ferguson USA Hot Talk Radio either on the webpage, FergusonUSAHotTalkRadio.com. You can go to the Facebook page for Ferguson USA Hot Talk Radio. You can go to YouTube, or you can go to Twitch for a live version of Ferguson USA Hot Talk Radio.com. After the
We
show,
also have the podcasters.
well, we also have the podcasts, which are loaded up after the show, and they're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and all those. Wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Well, I was thinking about what we said in previous shows about the 5 different countries that podcasts are reaching.
Right. We can be heard in Ireland, England, Belgium, Brazil, and in Hawaii, which is not another country, but it feels like it. So.
Okay, thank you very much. This is MC Richardson, and we're going to start off with, first we'll bring on Mr. Nimrod, but prior to that, I will do the remembrance and dialogue. Person who was a real star here in Kansas City. When you see people in the entertainment industry, you see people who have to set up all the technical equipment, what have you. That was Eddie Penrice. He's part of a musical family. He became president of that particular organization that did all this setting up for entertainers to make sure the sound's right and what have you. He comes from a musical family. Was Eddie Baker probably set up the orchestra here in Kansas City. And then Eddie was 72 years old, and he was tremendous here in Kansas City. Our other person who has received national attention, that is Brigadier General Charles M. McGee, and just so happened for our listener, he was born December the 7th. I'm not talking about what happened in Pearl Harbor. I'm talking about December the 7th. Also, he's a Sagittarian, if you didn't know that. Now, he died at the age of 102. They named an airport after him, which was a small airport in Kansas City. First, it was named after for the former mayor, Charlie B. Wheeler, and then when Mr. McGee, they named it after him, and he is part of the Tuskegee Airmen along with Granville Cox. They just got recognized for, they had hit it like they normally do for black folks after 73 years, that they was in some like a air contest with other Air Force pilots, and they kept that hidden that they were the best. And also during World War II, which the Tuskegees were in, 66 of them were killed. Now, we got a special guest who will have other special guests, so tell us where we're at.
Well, right now, we have the attorney, he's out, Mr. Nimrod Chapo. He's the attorney, for the Missouri Latino Congress, as well as the president for the state of Missouri, NAACP. And we have some special guests with us. Nimrod, go ahead, sir.
Well, let me add to that. He's also associate member of the United Minority Media Association, better known as UMA. Go ahead and proceed.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Gentlemen, it's such a pleasure to be on with you again. I tell you what, I look forward to this show in so many ways. Today, we are here. We've got John King and Eva Bruns. These are the father and mother of a young man named Justin King. Now, I'll let them tell you about their son and what happened to him, why it's important, and what we as a community and a state need to do to ensure that this doesn't happen again and that we get justice in this case.
Well, we have Mr. King hasn't got on the line yet.
Okay. Well, that's excellent.
Miss Eva, go ahead, please.
Yes, hi. Good afternoon. for giving a chance to say for the whole world that it's really important to me, and also to Father John, for my Justin son, Justin 13, his age of 28. That way, he got killed for the story, not justified. It's just homicide. It's not being fair. It's not giving us justice. Justin King was born in Missouri, raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and he's a good man. He's a work hard young man. It's all he do is loving his daughter. He's 10 years old, is Holly King, and love his mom. He's always checking his mom, and will always be around his family. He's a really grateful kid. He's never thought that was going to happen to him. So one day he got killed, but a person, no mercy, so that's 3 shots, and he did get away for it.
Okay, is this another black and white incident?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Because there's so much. Go ahead, somebody else. This is a show that everybody want to get in, and it's great because we're a no-nonsense show. Go ahead and speak.
That's right. That's right. Well, this is Nimrod, and I can tell you that we have looked at a number of different issues around the state. Before the travel advisory was imposed in 2017, we knew that Missouri had Jim Crow tendencies and vestiges of that horrible legal apparatus that treated people different just based on God-given characteristics like melanin, the color of their skin, black and brown people. But we've also seen that historically injustices, whether it was lynchings, over 60 of them across the state, or currently where Tory Sanders was murdered in a jail in Mississippi County, or where Durante Martin was murdered in Madison County, or even in Crawford County, where poor Justin King was also murdered. Charges are not being filed against white individuals, Caucasian men in particular, who are killing these individuals. It is not just that, like Tory Sanders' case, that it was police that were responsible for the death, and that we had statewide officials like Holly, like Greiton, and now Eric Schmidt, who have failed to prosecute the killers. Now it has escaped into the same territory as a mod opera, where you have vigilante justice, where you have individuals who are going out and killing other people and not being held responsible because local prosecutors, because local coroners and local sheriffs are either bungling the investigation, failing to be transparent, refusing to provide information, and ultimately keeping killers on the streets.
You remember we had with the King on the line.
All right. Ms. King, we've already heard from Justin's mother, Ms. Munn. She talked about the kind of son that Justin has been in his living memory and legacy. Would you care to add a few words?
Absolutely, Ryan. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about my son. My son was a fun-loving individual that cared about his family, cared about his friends, cared about his employees. Didn't meet a stranger, kind of like my mom. Never met a stranger. Would take his shirt off the back to help someone, and just unfortunately connected with the wrong neighbor. That saw fit to hate and despise and have race as a reason to want to kill someone. I mean, a gentleman that has, pulled a gun on his wife, pulled a gun on his neighbor, never did pull the trigger, but, came across a young African American and decided he wanted to pull the trigger 3 times and kill my son. So, my son did not deserve to die like that. He was just, out helping his friends, helping his neighbors, and, his neighbor, premeditated. I mean, planned this out. Gave him a lace marijuana cigarette with, methamphetamine. Justin never had that in his system before, and I'm certain of that. And it's just an injustice that's happened, and we're trying to seek justice, and that's what we're here for.
I know somebody was getting ready, but another injustice that occurred in 1965, and it's been spread all over the world now, especially cinema type deal and news, and that's death of Emmett Till. Go ahead and perceive what's going on now.
Thank you. Thank you. No, and you're absolutely right, MC. This is just another in the long line of atrocities that have been visited upon African Americans and people of color in particular here in the United States. This particular incident in Crawford County, Missouri, in a little town called Bourbon, Missouri, right outside of Cuba, right outside of Stillville, was picked up by the Oxygen True Crime Network and reported on by a very distinguished and well-respected reporter named Dorian Geiger. If you haven't checked that story out, it's on the internet. It's at oxygen.com and just type in Justin King. But the truth is that all you have to do is go to Google and type in Justin King, and you will see that if you type in that you will see that Google News, NBC, multiple outlets around the country, including the Associated Press and many others, are now carrying this story. And Missouri is again at the center of an inquiry on can people of color receive justice, right? Mr. King, would you do us the service of telling kind of what we know transpired that morning that he was murdered on November the 3rd of 2021?
Absolutely, Rod. What I know to happen around 11:45. Justin was shot, but previous to that incident, my son had been out helping a neighbor rescue a dog with this particular neighbor that shot him, and he was also helping a neighbor start a car again with the neighbor that was shot him. And so, the neighbor obviously had planned this all along, came over to my son's house and gave him a marijuana cigarette that was something that Justin wasn't used to having, laced with, I believe, this methamphetamine, this small amount that they found in his system. And, probably my son is, reacted a little bit different from that because he's never had it before. And so, Justin went over to the neighbor's house, and the neighbor came outside and shot him in the chest, shot him in the head and in the leg. He claimed that the neighbor claimed that my son had come in his house and snatched a TV off the wall. But the television is still on the wall. If my son would have snatched 2 televisions off the wall in a bureau, there would be fingerprints on these TVs. There's no fingerprints on these TVs. The prosecutor has set up a coroner's inquest where 6 Crawford County residents that were known by the sheriff of Crawford County very well, a gun enthusiast as the head of this 6-panel inquest, who made a comment during the coroner's inquest that he needed to go home and feed his dog. My son is died, and this guy made the comment that he needed to go feed his dog. So these 6 people had no concern about Justin. You could tell that they had their minds made up prior to this date. And it's just sad, man, to see what type of justice that you get in Crawford County. There is no justice. So, we've got to demand justice. We've got to go beyond Crawford County. We've got to reach out to the federal Bureau of Investigation. We've got to reach out to the attorney generals of the world, and we have to ask. We have to plead for justice for our children. And
that's right.
That's what happened on, and it's a sad situation. It still seems like, it's a dream because, everyone around us would have never thought this would happen to Justice. But it is, unfortunately.
Something happened. There's something strange about the Show Me State, but I want Ira to kind of give you a little background on about Jennifer Lewis, and she's an all-star from Kinloch, Missouri, and what happened in Georgia, and then we'll come back to Attorney Chapo of what we're talking about today. Go ahead. And as you're listening to Guess Who's Coming to Kansas City, which is broadcast every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Thank you. Go ahead, Ira.
Well, I'd like to defer to Nimrod right now, because right now my question is about what's taking place here currently in Missouri, in the court that happened, Mr. King
selected by the sheriff of Facebook page, and I looked and I saw two of the gentlemen, one African American male. The only African American male on there was a retired military guy, a friend of the sheriff, and a friend of, I think, another police department in the same area. The page was a gun enthusiast that made comments about, you know, shooting zombies that show up at your door. You know, so these are guys that were supposed to be impartial, and you know, neither the guy that did the shooting and my son. Well, they all knew the sheriff, and the sheriff had predetermined a couple of days after the shooting that this Eric Barber was justified. You know, that one of the I think the sergeant came to me the day after my son was shot and told me that Eric Barber was sorry for what he had done. And I'm like, how can you tell me this man is sorry for what he? How can that come out of your mouth? You know, it's just a good old boy network in Crawford County. This guy has been for seems like to me for over 10 years.
Yeah. Mrs. King, excuse me, Mrs. Bruns, can you share with our listening audience what you saw there at the coroner's inquest and how it made you feel?
It made me feel like a slap in the face. Like they didn't even give a little bit of justice on my son. So all their lives, they didn't give us a chance to even speak to all the witnesses. And the prosecutor, Mr. Smith, didn't give us the witnesses to continue. They would. They just locked them up and say you can get out in the chair now. And no evidence whatsoever. That they only have the evidence of my son's video. That they didn't promise us they have to show all the videos, but Eric Barber had no video whatsoever. So it's not being fair. They just begin on one side.
Yes.
It really hurt us so much. And I can't even eat, I can't sleep, because all they see is all the lies.
Yes. And I think that is so important, Ms. Brown, because the truth is that there were multiple pieces of video. And now this is a coroner's inquest, and by operation of law, what is supposed to happen is that the evidence in the case is supposed to be shared with these 6 impartial people called as members of the community to serve and to decide whether there was a homicide, whether it was suicide, or whether there are some extenuating circumstances that had not been determined previously. And in this case, the prosecutor spent the day, and tell me if you agree with this, did the prosecutor spend the day talking about Eric Barber, or did he spend the day talking about your son, Justin King?
You know, for the benefit of the listener, would you, Nimrod, tell the people what a coroner inquest is? What does it consist of, and why does it happen?
Sure. So a coroner's inquest it's a device used by statute. That the purpose of the inquest is to allow for a determination for what caused the death, right? So normally a medical examiner or a coroner in any particular county is charged with a duty to review any person that dies, right? And decide, is there foul play? Was it natural causes? What was it? And so many times people understand that autopsies occur when there's a question about the mode of death or what happened. And that's what the coroner's inquest is to do. If the coroner will not make a determination or wants assistance from the public in getting that final answer, that last answer that's going to go on the death certificate, it's going to sit in the as a legal determination, then they can call upon a coroner's inquest. It's a rarely used procedure and one that has been the subject of reform in the state of Missouri because sometimes it's been misused. And that's what one of the concerns that the family, as I understand, has it in this case. That's right. And so at this inquest, the prosecutor, the person who the coroner ostensibly would have turned his file over to, to make a determination on filing charges was the one who presented all the evidence. And then at the conclusion of that evidence coming in, there were real questions raised by the family. And I think one of those is, why is it that most of the day was spent vilifying the victim, Justin King, instead of talking about what happened to Mr. King, why it was that his killer was let out of jail, and how that came to pass. And that part of that, you have to review the evidence. There is video evidence from many different angles, yet only a couple of angles were shown, and none from the trailer of the killer. Mr. King, Ms. Bruns, can either of you provide some further illustration of those points?
Absolutely. I mean, what was just vivid to me was, again, it was a one-sided portrayal by the prosecutor, who was supposed to be seeking justice for my son, but it was a one-sided portrayal of the fact that they claimed Justin broke into this man's trailer. You don't see that. You don't see him breaking into anything. They claim that he went in and destroyed this man's house. He was only in the, if he was in the house, and you don't see it, he was only in there a few seconds. And they claim that he damaged all of this stuff, and there's no evidence of that. My son had on pajama bottoms, no shirt, no shoes, and that's not what you wear to go break into somebody's house or to go assault them. That's what he had on, and that's what he died in. And he died. He was shot outside. The blood that they claim they found was all outside. They found no blood inside this man's house. And so, the council law says that you got to, be a threat. Well, my son was not a threat. You were just over my son's home, an hour before time, bringing him basically poison. I don't understand why they're not charging him for that. You poisoned my son, claiming to be a friend, and that's what happened. There was no evidence from Eric Barber's trailer, no video from his trailer, and they said they had it. They claimed they didn't want to show it to us because they didn't want to hurt our for it to hurt us. So we were looking forward to seeing all of the evidence, and we only saw a portion of what we should have seen. And I'm looking forward to hopefully getting that file and seeing it once we get it. But why wouldn't they have shown that day? Show us all of the evidence, not a portion of the evidence.
That's right. That's right. So, and Mr. King, I don't want to cut you off, but I do want you and Ms. Bruns to talk about the next day, the night of, I guess that would have been November the 4th, after your son was murdered. What did you see when you were there at his residence?
Yeah, November the 4th, the very next day, 24 hours after my son was murdered, the sheriff and the deputies, came to us and they said, well, we want you to know that the investigation is still going on. What they really wanted to say was, we want you to know that Eric Barber's out. But I already knew that because we had called to find that out. So 15 minutes later, they brought him in a caravan to his home and under the guise of, we're looking for more evidence. And they went in and they claimed they looked for more evidence. But what they were actually doing was getting clothes, weapons, mind you, weapons for Eric Barber to now take from his home to go to his parents' home.
You mean a gun?
Yeah,
A gun.
Yeah. Gun case and all.
And he had a felony.
Yeah, and this is a gentleman that pulled a .357 Magnum on his wife, and the now prosecutor who was a guardian ad litem in that case was facilitated somehow that the custody went to Eric Barber, not the wife, but Eric Barber pulled a gun on his wife and threatened the family, right? And a few years later, Eric Barber pulled a gun on one of the neighbors in the trailer park. So to me, not only the trailer park should have known, hey, this guy is dangerous. We need to get this guy out of here before he kills someone, you know. But now 2 years later, my son is the fall guy. He's the black one out of the three that got the gun pulled on him, and he's the one that ends up dead. 3 shots, rapid fire shots. Eric Barber claimed that he shot him once, and that my son kept lunging at him, and he eventually shot him again. And you know, they kept lunging at him, which is bogus. And then he finally shot him the third time. Everyone in that trailer park said those 3 shots were right after the other. Pop, pop, pop. Rapid fire. He shot him in the head, he shot him in the chest, and he shot him in the leg. You know, that's premeditated murder. That's exactly what it is.
Mr. King, am I right that during the coroner's inquest, the way that it came out is that outside of the trailer, Eric Barber, and he admits to shooting him in the leg, and it went through and through. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. You can see in the video that my son is in the ground. He's trying to get away from that door. And he just keeps shooting him. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's okay, Mrs. Bruns. That is okay. I don't think anybody can't understand the incredible grief and pain that you and your family are going through right now.
My son is an amazing son. You just know him. He's a joyful. He works hard. He makes sure that everybody's happy and everybody's okay. That there is no way that he knows that he's gonna get shot on that day, because he even called his friends. I thought they were friends on the shoulder, and that's what he said we are. After he shoot my son, I saw him several times in his house, so it's no way that he breaking into his house, because they're both going in each other's house. And they all lied about it.
And I think that's important. I think that's important because after being shot that first time through and through on the leg and the thigh, I think the evidence came in that Justin started falling forward. And then came the other 2 shots, one to the head of Justin King, and because it was a .22, bounced off of his skull, and he could have lived after that. So after 2 shots, Justin King could have lived. And then came the third shot, which caused massive bleeding as it entered his chest cavity. I know that you and that both of you have spent a lot of time there in that community where Justin was. Tell us how his neighbors remember him.
They're all happy that he moved down there. That he's a young black man that's full of energy. They help everybody there, even cut the lawnmower and snowing. And even the one day he was driving around, he see this neighborhood older couple that help in the grocery. He introduced himself as Justin King, cross the street, and let me help you for your groceries. My son likes to barbecue. He cooks so much. He shared his food for neighbors. Even Eric Barber. And everybody's amazing and missed him, and all the witnesses around them is on Justin King. But they don't listen to them. They shut them down. So they don't want my son get ejected.
Yeah, Eric, I mean, right, exactly what Eva is saying. Every single one of his neighbors, they cherish Justin's friendship. They cherish his, the just neighborly aspect of Justin. And they came out to tell the story, to tell the truth, tell exactly the fact that Eric Barber shot him in cold blood, and he has been carrying a gun and threatening neighbors and saying that he wanted to kill someone. He had a Facebook page that he wanted to dump a mag into someone. I mean, these are all facts that actual evidence, from the neighbors, from Facebook posts, from the fact that he had a charge 2 years prior for being intoxicated and pulling a gun on somebody. So I mean, this is what the neighbors are saying. You know, Justin was the only African American in that trailer park, right? And we knew none of these neighbors, but they're all coming to us who we didn't know prior to this incident, telling us, hey, how good your son was, and the fact that this was cold-blooded murder. You know, we didn't go to them. They came to us, telling us this, and we're like, you know, shocked.
I was so proud of Justin, and I raised him well. The only reason he moved down there because my son is having a hard time to pick his daughter up from Cuba, Missouri. Every time, he never missed any visitation for his every other weekend for his daughter Holly King since he was a baby. So one day he decided to move down in Bourbon, Missouri. It's closer to his daughter, so she never missed any visitation because she's growing up. She's turned 10. And that young lady, the young Holly King, had always spent time with his dad. Every single time, that whenever they can get a chance to teach him anything, they're not gonna able to see his dad, kiss his dad, and call his dad because he's gone. They only asked him for justice. Holly King is only 10, loses dad. What does it mean? That thing is racist. It is a racist.
Yeah. I mean, and Eric Barber was just in Justin's home a few minutes, minutes before this. I mean, he knows his daughter was there in the house. I mean, he shot my son in cold blood, knowing that his daughter is in the house next door, and and he knew the relationship between my son and my granddaughter. I mean, this guy was callous. He had no heart. It was just it's monstrous. That's what it is. I mean, no care.
And they accept that they let him go for 24 hours. I never hear since I've been in America for 33 years. I'm from the Philippines. Even in the Philippines, they don't do this. If you kill somebody, you're supposed to sit in jail until your trial. But they never give him the chance to get a trial. It's a land free. And my son is gone.
And during the coroner's inquest, did it come out that Eric Barber, through his own admission, had drugs in his house?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. He had drugs in his house. He gave drugs to. I mean, it was on video of him giving drugs to Justin.
Well, there must be some prosecution of that. That's being prosecuted, right?
No, they didn't do that.
No. They haven't prosecuted him for anything. It's Crawford County. I mean, Eric Barber is bulletproof in Crawford County. I mean, he pulled a gun on his wife. He ended up getting custody of the daughter. He pulled a gun on another gentleman. The guy didn't show up for court, so they dropped the charges on that. And now he's killed my son, and they call it justifiable homicide. You know, it's absolutely ludicrous of what they did. You know, absolutely ludicrous. I've never seen any type of legal proceeding like I saw a few weeks ago at that coroner's inquest. That was just, I've never seen anything like it. Right? To me, it was a circus. It was not. It had nothing to do with justice. It had everything to do with protecting this guy, this white man in white Crawford County. They could not let a black man get justice. It seems to me. And, you know, it seems to me that's what the people in Crawford County, that's what the voters want. And that's what they gave.
Boy. You know, there's been many instances of injustice in Missouri, and then we named a few. Some unsolved murders that are currently, you know, highlighted or at least known. Through your quest for justice for Justin, have you learned of other parents, of other instances where the murders have been unprosecuted or still remain unexplained?
I'm doing my research on it, Rod. I mean, it seems like it's definitely not. It's something that's common in Missouri. I don't know why it's plagued Missouri so bad. I mean, I'm sure it happens all across the country, but we as people have to stand up for these injustices. We've got to come forward. We've got to march. We've got to do shows like this. We've got to be vocal, and we can't just sit back and, like I say, go quietly in the night and just continue to accept it, because it's not going to go away, you know. And it's to me it's a nightmare, you know. To every day I wake up, you know, and my son's not there, and I'm not. And I can't have a conversation with my son, and I had a lot of conversations with him, and it's just a nightmare to how a young man so full of life with such a bright future can be snuffed away, and there's no recourse. There's this guy can just walk into Walmart like it never happened. I mean, the very next day he had a look on his face like, you know, he had ran a red light instead of killed an innocent person.
Boy. In your quest, I know that you've gone through a number of measures. Will you tell us about the rallies and the protests that you've done in the past, and then what you have coming up?
Absolutely. We have rallied. We have marched. We have been to the Bourbon police station. We've been to Crawford County courthouse. We've marched in the street. We've done a lot of different things. I think Eva and some of Justin's friends have actually went to one of the television stations, and marched at the radio station. Nationwide, you know, the story about Justin has been picked up, and I thank God it has, because I mean, we're just a few that have a voice, but we're not going to stop. You know, when we came out of that courthouse in Crawford County a few days ago after the coroner's inquest. At that point, I vowed, every breath, every day that I have breath in my body, until Justin gets justice, we're gonna shout it from the mountaintops, because it's just a tragedy of justice. We definitely plan on doing a big march on February 5th. We're going to start with a vigil at the place where Justin lost his life at the trailer park there, Lakewood Trailer Park, right off 44. We're going to caravan down Highway 44. We're going to even get out and march the 2.5 miles that were left, the 2.5 hours that Justin laid on the ground. Just a piece of meat. Crawford County, they treated him like a piece of meat. They didn't, when the police got there, they didn't even check the vital signs. They drug him from one spot to the next. They didn't know if he was breathing or not. They drug him like a piece of meat, and he laid on the ground for 2.5 hours before the coroner picked him up. So we're gonna march those last 2.5 miles to the courthouse, and we're gonna protest vehemently. I mean, we protested before, but we're going to protest vehemently because, this coroner's inquest was a mockery. It was a disgrace. There was nothing ethical, nothing moral about that incident, that date. It was just, I think, a slap in the face, and just disrespectful for my family to sit there and listen to how they mocked my son and treated him. When he lay down and took his last breath in Crawford County, and all he wanted to do was help people. All he wanted to do was to be a dad to his daughter, and he couldn't do it.
What kind of excuse did they give for not showing the pictures and the video of the murder itself?
Well, they said that it would be too hard on the family.
That's a lie.
That's a lie. I mean, we've seen. I mean, the scream that we heard on the video, there's nothing harder than that.
But for me, that's torture for me already. They're not saying, even the day that happened, we run over there because I live in Missouri for an hour away. They didn't even let me be close to my son. I begged them, let me see my son. But they don't even listen, and they didn't even let me go.
That's right.
And no one, even now, no one even verified me that my son's dead. No one, the sheriff, Carford, excuse my English, is no one that even called me to say my son is in danger. No one.
And let's talk about that just for a moment. has anyone from Crawford County been in communication with the family, either of you, about the autopsy itself?
No.
No. The coroner reached out and said that after, when they could release the evidence, they would. But
Hello?
Go ahead.
We might have lost.
John
There
King?
you
all
go,
I
John.
have.
You cut out there for a second. What were you saying about the coroner?
okay, I said the coroner said that 3 weeks ago that once they were able to release the evidence, they would, but that is not to this point happening. That's all. All she said was that they will release it, but that was it.
Boy. Now, what about the prosecutor's office? They normally have an individual with the prosecutor's office that deals with the victims or the families of the victims. Have they been helpful to you?
No.
Absolutely not. We haven't gotten a call
They're
from the
being so
prosecutor.
mean. They're being
No.
so mean to us. They've been asking a question, but they didn't give a direct answer. They all answering is different answer for the other person, the editor, the prosecutor. All of them is just look at each other and lie. Or our face.
No, there's been no communication from the prosecutor. It's complete opposite. I bet you they communicate with Eric Barber and his father and that family, but and that's the suspect. That's the murderer. It's just no justice.
No.
There's no justice, right? No justice.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask a question here, okay, Miss Allison. Mr. Barber, the one who killed his son, who is his father? How does he have the power, evidently, who does he know in that county that allows, his family or his son to have that kind of luxury of being walking around killing people?
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the questions from the news people that asked me that the day we had Justin's wake. She asked us, was there anyone connected to the police department? All that I know is that Eric Barber's father is, well known. He's been a businessman at Eric on piano business. All I know, these guys could be Ku Klux Klan members together. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. But I do know it's an unjustified clique that has allowed Eric to, over the last 10 or 15 years, to just step through fires without getting harmed. Again, you can pull a gun on your wife and threaten the life of your child and your wife, and you end up with custody of your daughter. A few years later, you can pull a gun on a neighbor, and all the other neighbors are in fear. You're still living in the trailer park
And also
without
the
any
girlfriend,
recourse.
John King, also that makes the girlfriend is being raped by him.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different stories that we hear. Child molestation and all these different things. But I mean, I feel sorry for his daughter that's living through that. But my son is dead, and I want justice for my son. I feel sorry for anybody that has to live with that situation, and it's unfortunate that they're protecting him, and as a result, you have people being harmed. Sounds like one is his daughter.
Is people? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't you supposed to be out, my guest, on my show on the 5th, if I'm right?
That's right.
So can we kind of figure out a way we can have them back, okay, to continue this conversation, even while the rally is going on, and get some of the people in the rally to kind of put this out. The more people we talk about this, the more this can be expanded and plead our case to the world. You know what I'm saying? Because it seems as though, just my personal opinion here, that Mr. Barber's father, whoever he is there, has a very small son, It seemed like you're watching something out of a bad movie someplace. Come in with
Yes.
somebody, going around, just taking over the whole town, and everybody's scared of them.
That's right. That's right. No, that would be great, Ira. That'd be great. We would love to do it. And then, well, tell us how, if people want to, if they want to be involved, if they want to work with you and the family and the community, both there in Bourbon, Missouri, and Cuba, and from his hometown there in St. Louis, how do people get information about the rally? How do they get there? Tell them.
Yeah, the rally is available. We can get that. I mean, you can, if you want information, obviously you can contact Rod, who's our lawyer. We have a Facebook presence where we share information. But February the 5th, we're going to meet. We can put that location, that address, make it visible on the radio or whatever. But we're going to meet right off of Highway 4040, 1145, at the Lakewood Trailer Community, right off of 44 in Bourbon, Missouri. We're going to meet there at 1145. We're going to caravan from there down 44 towards Steelville, and we will end up at the Steelville, Crawford County Courthouse. That's what we're going to do on February the 5th.
Okay. And just to be clear, what is it that we're demanding?
We're demanding justice. We're demanding that Eric Barber be held accountable for the murder, the premeditated murder, the poisoning, all of these things that he has done to my son. We demand justice that he be held accountable. Crawford County is a small county in Missouri. We know the history of Missouri. It's been a very racist place, but this is 2022. We demand justice for my son for the murder that occurred on November the 3rd. Eric Barber has to be held accountable.
Okay. I know that there's been some media attention about this, and we've talked before about this as a story that's even reached international outlets in Europe and other places. Has that been helpful to find people, or to assist in finding people who have evidence and information about the murder of your son?
Absolutely. People are reaching out all throughout the Missouri. Barber's wife, ex-wife, that is, has reached out to us with his injustice. And her, actually, she's now friended me on Facebook. Her name is Holly, and she claimed how dangerous this man is. And if they would have listened to her years ago, she kind of feels halfway responsible because of what she's told the Crawford County how dangerous this man is, but nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. And now he's went on to harm his own daughter, and he's killed my son. He has to be stopped, and we have to do something.
Excellent. Well, I know that lots of folks have reached out, not only through people there in St. Louis and the local community, to provide information and support to you and the family. If we continue to bring light to these injustices, and this is the scary and sad part, is that Justin King is just one, and this represents one family who has lost their loved one, who has lost a valued member of society. He was working every day, he was caring for his daughter, he was taking care of business, and then you get confronted with a tragedy. And then at the very time that you wait and you hope that the same people that many times as we're driving down the highway, that we're worried that we're going to get pulled over by, they won't do their job when the facts are so evident. And that's what I think has taken the national media and has gotten us involved, is because there is a sense of injustice that is so persistent and complete that it is hard to understand. You know, normally we imagine a criminal justice system that may not be 100% accurate, but at least it begins to play within the rules of being fair. If you kill somebody, you get arrested, and there's a trial. And if you assert, well, this was self-defense, well then, you know, that's for a jury to decide. You don't get to decide that on the way into the process. And I know that has been confounding and surprising not only to the family, but to so many throughout the state and now nationally.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand by. It sounds like we've had some technical difficulties.
somebody, they got to have some, some gun. They can have a knife, even a baseball bat or something.
Yep, that's right.
I mean, here in this case, this man didn't have anything.
Anything.
That's right. That's right. And nobody can say a word different on that.
Once again, the hour is about to play out. But on the same token, it's a coroner inquest. I know the people want to have a jury. And let me reference back to what Ira said about what happened in Georgia when they did have a jury. And of the 12 or 13 people on that jury, there was one black and 9 white women that they convicted that terrible thing that this guy was supposed to be burglarizing the neighborhood. So on that, I know that Ira said they want to do some future things. I know that Attorney Chappell want to do some few things. So while we close now, just say what the audience listening can do to assist you guys in every way possible.
Thank you so much, MC. Number one, thank you, and thank Ira for having this wonderful show. It's so meaningful to have this opportunity for the parents of Justin King to speak out and demand justice. To be there on February the 5th to demand that justice and that human life be held up in that community, in Bourbon, in Cuba, and then in Stillville as the motorcade and the march process will be meaningful. Look on the NAACP's website. There will be instructions. There'll be links. There'll be more information so that anybody that wants to can participate. And if you know something about this murder or another murder that's similar, it's time to speak up. We can't sit back anymore. Go ahead, Mr. King and Miss Grimes?
I'd like to thank you for your for your radio station. To give it a chance because since the November 3rd, my life is miserable. My life is my heart is broken, and we really ask for justice. And I know my son. That's all he did was just get a justice for. And all of the people they know us and search us on Facebook or on YouTube. My son is more important life in my life. And I'm always very serious because he's moving forward because he wants to help me to pay half of my rent. Because I always say, single mom. There's no one that can call me and check on me. It's his own daughter. So please, all of you that listen to me, check me on Facebook and check us. And I love son. My son will never be racist. He never harm anybody. And it's a helpful man. Please, I ask you for justice for my son.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. King.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Eva. Thank you, guys. I appreciate everybody for taking time out, working on this project. We want people to definitely come out and support and, justice. But it's not just about justice. Even though, we loved our son dearly, but this is for all the Justins, all the Jacquelines, all of the Johns, all of our children. We're being eradicated, and people are not being held accountable for that. This is 2022. If we don't stand up and do something, it's going to continue. I hate to say that Trump has just set this country up for a spiral of degradation, but that's what's going on. Since January 6th, that insurrection, you would have never thought that happened. But we have got to stand up and say enough is enough. Enough of our children have lost their lives, and it has to stop. We've got to take a stand, and now is the time. So please come out, take a stand, not just for justice, but for all the justices that have lost their lives, and all the brown and Indian people that have just been targeted just because of the color of their skin.
I know our time is up, but Chapel, would you have them to bring us kind of update? We'll have a show, but we would like to have them on first thing, just to brief the people and encourage them to be present and gather all the information they can for the February 5th rally. Would you do that, Mr. Chapel and Mr. King and the mother? And we're sorry that this was so painful that you showed emotion, but you came back strong, though, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have our prayers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We keep them prayers up, blessings down.
That's right. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rat. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Well, tune in next week. And what time does your show come on? And what is the name of it?
It's Lunch with the Missoula Chamber of Commerce. We come on every Saturday since 2015 from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And we kind of talk about the news that you can't get anyplace else. And this is definitely some news you can't get no place else. And we want to be a part of this.
Yeah, that might be another avenue, because we got to keep the people, we got to saturate everybody all over Missouri, all over the United States, what's going on. So whatever we can do at Ferguson USA, Hot Talk Radio, we will do that. Thank you very much. And I'm watching football. Thank y'all.
Thank you for having us.
Well, right now, I have a plan, Mr. King, and I'll get with you on it, okay?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyway, life is good. If just MC want anybody to know, the score is tied up 16-16. Love you guys, and life's good. Have a good win. We peace.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank
God
you.
bless
Thank you.
And since we're talking about football, go Chiefs tomorrow.